Hello, Zambia, and good to know that you're tuned into the Manifesto Show, the show that gives you nothing but the best in politics as well as governance. And today on the show, I am joined by the president of the New Hope MMD, Dr. Nevers Mumba. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
It's definitely wonderful to have you on the show today.
Well, listen, I wish you great compliments of the season. You look bright. It looks like things happening are not affecting you. You seem to be at another level of rejoicing in the Lord for what He has done for you in the past year.
All right, so let's just get down to business. So as we are heading towards the general election, there's a lot of political activities that are going to be happening. Now, we just want to find out from you, since 1991, when MMD came into power, when we became we had a system of democracy where we had other political players also coming on board. 1991 to 2011, and now we have a different name now, which is New Hope MMD. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, thank you. You have given the history of the MMD in the correct sense. That 1991, MMD came on the political scene. It brought hope that you now could have a liberalized economy, but more importantly, the freedoms of expression and speech and association were now enshrined within the rights of the Zambian people. So MMD brought hope that we could be more productive by being more innovative, by releasing the potentials of individuals in our country. And you notice that as a result of that new phenomena and approach to both the economy and politics, we saw that the economy began to amend and heal up until the time when MMD left power in 2011. Zambia was one of the fastest growing economies in the world. As a matter of fact, when I was vice president to President Levi Mwanawasa, Zambia was one of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world. So you can imagine that the policies that were brought by MMD were extremely progressive. They were progressive because they actually changed the entire outlook of Zambia. And today, when we look back and look at the infrastructure that has been put in place by the MMD, we can only, thank the wisdom of the founders of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy for the tremendous foundation, economic foundation that they laid or we laid in order for Zambia to be where she is today. Our colleagues, the Patriotic Front, have been trying to build on that foundation. Unfortunately, because their policies are totally different from those of MMD, we see that the foundation cannot support maybe some of their efforts. And that's why we are seeing the lapses that we are seeing both in democracy and also in the economy.
Speaking about the economy, I think you have mentioned that since MMD came into power, the economy, we would say it was stable because now it's a different scenario because now a dollar is at 21 kwacha. When you go into power, come next year, what are some of the economic reforms that are going to be put in place, especially to make sure that our interest rates are lowered down so that we don't head towards recession or some sort?
First of all, I would like to just answer the last part of the last question that you asked about the New Hope. The Movement for Multi-Party Democracy lost elections to the Patriotic Front in 2011. I took over the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy in 2012. And like other previous presidents of MMD, I have a vision of my own that I shared with our leadership that they embraced. And we call our party now New Hope. Under Levi Mwanawasa, it was called New Deal. Under President Tuluva, it was called New Culture. And Mr. Rupia Banda talked about continuity with change. My leadership has brought new hope. New hope in the sense that we have carried the values that made Zambia a success story in the manner we run the economy and in the manner we run the democratic government. So that is the MMD and the values that made MMD different from other values. But we, under New Hope, we are removing everything that the Zambians did not like about MMD. and the culture in MMD of being arrogant politically, taking the Zambians for granted, perceived corruption that seemed to emerge towards the end of our time in office. Those are my concerns, that we are only going to take the good side of the old MMD and then throw in the new values of morality and integrity, which I am pushing as new leader of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. As you are aware, I'm a pastor, and I'm very strong on ensuring that human rights are respected, that the sanctity of life is respected, that justice is enshrined within our own systems. So these values and virtues of Christianity are now being embedded in the life story of MMD. So that's why we call it New Hope. It is the same political party, but we are giving a hope that what we need now is new leadership, new morality, a new approach that is going to make Zambia more inclusive.
Someone would argue to say that you have a vast experience in politics and you have served as a vice president before. In a government where you say at the end of the term, there were levels of corruption. Somebody would argue to say that, why didn't you do something then when you were serving in that particular government? And what's the change now that there is a new hope? What is there to hope for, especially in this time and era?
Well, listen, like any organization, everything rises and falls with leadership. MMD has a new president. And that in itself, and that alone, gives hope that the leader who is in charge runs on certain values, believes a certain set of values. And those are the values that I'm bringing into the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. Nevers Mumba, for instance, is not a foreigner to this country and to politics and to church. Zambians know who Nevers Mumba is. Zambians know his weaknesses. Zambians know the strengths of Nevers Mumba. Zambians know that Nevers Mumba's love for this country and patriotism is unquestioned. I mean, my church background gives me the opportunity to have many Zambians that have come to find life in Christ through my ministry. They're everywhere. They're in PF, they're in UPND, they're in government high places, they're ministers in this government. And these came to know Christ through the values of Christianity that I taught and preached over the past 40 years. So Nevers is not a foreigner or a stranger to the Zambian people. So they know that by putting Nevers Mumba as president, they are putting a confidence of the fact that for the first time, morality, integrity, and anti-corruption approach is going to be seen in this country. And then when you are part of a team of MMD, I was just vice president. I was not the president. So I was part of the committee, and committees pass resolutions on the basis of the majority. So if we meet there and 20 people say this is the way it's going to go and 3 of us said no, we shouldn't go there, I have to succumb to the majority. But when I'm the president, I'll put forward the motion and explain to my team why this is important. And it becomes easier for us to do the right thing because I'm in charge now. Before I was not in charge.
Speaking about the right thing, there's an outcry, especially by the young people who are the majority when it comes to employment. I think this has been an issue for a very long time, from government to government. What are some of the reforms, or rather measures, that the New Hope MMD is bringing forth in order to curb the high rate of unemployment within our country?
First of all, I'll answer that question in its exclusion, but then I'll talk about the bigger picture of our solution to the healing of the economy. For the young people and their job and the job problem, MMD was on track to dealing with this problem because our policy supports the small scale, medium scale businessmen, because we believe that placing business and economic growth in the hands of the private sector is actually the answer to growing the economy. And we proved that over the years. We do not believe, and neither do I believe, that government is the one who should be employing people. We don't have enough jobs there. If you have 400, 500,000 jobs in the civil service, that's a good number because government cannot sustain more than that. So that's not where we look for the job market. The job market is in private hands. So MMD established a policy where we started to empower the younger people as they graduate from university, from colleges. We encourage them to be innovative and we sponsor their innovation. We ensure that the innovative ideas of the young people, they are the ones that we sponsor so that they themselves create jobs for themselves and 5-7 others of their friends and run enterprises. And it's through the combination of the small scale, medium scale businesses that we start to grow the job market. So we don't believe in just the parastatals or government agencies giving jobs to people. We are going to give jobs to young people and prefer those who are properly qualified, reduce corruption in the hiring of young people or people in the jobs in the civil service and in other job opportunities that exist within the government infrastructure. But our policy is to ensure that we encourage small-scale, medium-scale businessmen and create capital, that venture capital that these young people can have access to. That is going to be our continuous fight so that the economy grows at the hands of the private sector.
All right, so you're watching the Manifesto Show on Live TV. Follow us on Facebook, Live TV. Also follow us on Instagram at Live TV. We'll be right back. If you have just joined us, you are tuned into Live TV and you are watching the Manifesto Show. And today I am breaking word with the president of New Hope MMD, Dr. Nevers Mumba. And before we went for a break, we were just looking at key aspects, especially when it comes to creating of employment, especially by the with regards to the majority who are young people actually in our community. But moving forward, we would like to stress a bit on this issue of the economy, which is a very sensitive issue right now. Looking at what is happening, especially from the energy sector, because we have seen a lot of SMEs who are actually having challenges in actually operating their small businesses because of power cuts, for example, which is also contributing to the decline of the economy because much of the activities are not being done. Let's talk about, in terms of diversifying the economy, what besides relying on copper and other things that we normally rely on, what is the new hope bringing on the table, especially to boost the economy?
Well, let me tell you that our manifesto is a talking manifesto. When I say talking, it's an expressive manifesto. It speaks of a whole range of things that we must do in order to have a working economy. First of all, the movement for New Hope Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, our first approach, the moment we take over government, is to bring order in the nation. Because in the absence of order, there's no productivity and there's no job creation that can be consistent. And the reason why the job market in Europe, the job markets in the United States, and other developed nations stay up, it's because their societies are organized and there's order. So under the Nevers Mumba administration, one thing you're going to see from the word go is, first of all, create order. Before God could create man or anything, he first created order, separated light from darkness, created the elements that are necessary to sustain life once he created it. So he first creates the atmosphere within which a human being can exist, then he creates the human being. It's the same principle that I'm going to use. The biggest problem Zambia and many African countries face today is disorder. And a lot of people have become rich because of the confusion in African states. I want to make sure that small things like you are driving, there are rules on the road. People must stay with the rules on the road because you are living in the community. You can't just do what you want. We are going to talk about cleanliness, that you don't just do stuff wherever you want to do on the road. Those are small things, and it helps the society to have a system of operation, that if we live within the rules of how to achieve something, people will have confidence in our economy because it becomes a predictable investment destination. That if you invest in Zambia and they try to cheat you out of your profit, you can take that to an industrial court, and within 7 days, the industrial court is going to dispose of that without corruption in the judicial system. So corruption is something that we are going to deal with to the dead end. Just like my boss, the late now, Levi Mwanawasa, dealt with the corruption to a place where people were even afraid to pronounce the word corrupt in the system. So we will bring order, where corruption will not have a part in the way we govern ourselves. We are going to bring order in the way that justice is distributed, that corruption is removed from the courts, corruption is removed from the police, corruption is removed from the civil service, so that everyone lives by the rules. And those who refuse to live by the rules, they pay the consequences that are attached to that. Once order is created, then now we can move to the next stage, which is energy production. That is the way our manifesto is going to run. Why energy? Because industrialization, productivity, creation of new businesses and companies would depend on the availability of energy, sustained energy. Not today there's energy, tomorrow there's no energy, 3 days later you have it, the other. That's not going to sustain a working economy. So we are going to not only diversify in terms of energy sources, we are going to ensure that we improve our facilities, both at the area of generation and distribution of that energy. We're going to ensure that the private sector gets fully involved in both generation and even distribution of the energy. We are going to go green. For the most part, we will do wind energy. We will do solar energy. We will do a combination of hydro and everything together until we have in excess in terms of energy, because then we are set for development. Then we are set to be able to provide jobs to our people, because productivity is going to be consistent and confidence can come back into the Zambian market. From there, we are going to move to the third sector, which is food production. I want to make sure that food is no longer an issue in our country, because the moment food is made available to all Zambians at affordable rates, then the temperatures of anger and cadarism is going to be reduced, because the reason why people misbehave in politics, it's food.
I just wanted also to quickly make mention before I forget the aspect of cadarism, which has also become a problem in terms of order. And I don't know if your party would agree. Many people in Zambia, they're complaining to say that cadres are bringing lawlessness in our community. Now, beside that aspect, there's also an issue of because in your regime, MMD regime, we never used to hear these issues of cadre molesting people, harassing people, but now it's like a trend. Cadres seem to be on top of everything. What could be the problem, and how are you going to resolve this issue?
Well, it would be unfair for us to say in MMD we didn't have that. We had quite a bit of cadarism in it. It was Never Mumba who dealt with it. And like I've said, I was vice president to him. I learned a lot from Never Mumba. And a lot of policies that he implemented, I endorsed them and I'll pursue them as president. But I want you to know that this whole cadarism issue arises from a political organization that has no vision for the young people. The only vision they have for these young people is to support the political careers of the upper Mwambas. So these kids have no hope for tomorrow. They are not being trained further in education so that they can take over the positions of those in power. They will die as cadres. So to them, they live for today, they eat today, and wait to die. I am not going to do that under my administration. The New Hope MMD is going to reinvest in the young people. Like I've said, that cadarism won't be a story of yesterday. I would like every Zambian, young or old, to be respectable. Today, if you're a cadre, tomorrow you should be a manager. You should be a director in the Ministry of Finance. But how do you get there without being trained? When I talk about order, bringing order into Zambia, that's part of the order. We cannot have cadres running markets in the manner they are running, buses the way they are running, harassing the bus owners, harassing the taxi drivers, harassing everybody in the name of belonging to the ruling party. This will be the last time Zambia is going to suffer from there. I will invest in the young people. Those at the stations that only sell vegetables and get money from people, I want them to be productive with their hands so that when they work, they are working themselves and value is coming back to them. And that is going to be given a period of 1.5 years to ensure that we deal with the issue of the young people, create avenues for them to become productive. But I can promise the Zambian people that in my first phase of creating order, the markets are going to be orderly. The minibuses and taxi drivers are not going to do what they do on the streets. It's going to be a thing of the past. People will start to come to Zambia to come and learn how life must be lived. And it's possible because we've been to other countries where what we do here you can't do, because if you are disorganized, then you can't develop. Corruption thrives. The police get money from you and let you go with a wrecked vehicle. After 2 kilometers, you have an accident, somebody dies. All that recklessness, we have to deal with it. So I can promise the Zambian people, cadarism as we know it now is unfair to the cadres themselves, it's unfair to the Zambian people on the streets, and it's unfair to the future of the young people of this country. So I would deal with this thing head on. I would direct the energies of the young people towards their improvement. If they fail to complete school, we have to give them trades and skills that can make them make their own money without being leeches on other people. And I think that it is something that will be a trademark of the New Hope Movement government under my leadership.
All right, so we're going to take another ad break and we'll come back. There's more actually to this conversation. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Live TV, and this is the Manifesto Show. Moving forward, still on the economy and order. And I've noticed integrity as well as morality is key to your heart.
Yes.
Yes. So let's talk about other avenue in terms of diversifying the economy that you would rather recommend as new hope for MMD.
So we have dealt with creating order, because it's within order that development can actually be sustained. We go back and forth today because there's no order. Today you pay this one, you bribe him, they reverse everything they've been doing, they give it to you. You don't qualify, but because you've given them money. So you have incompetent people doing stuff which they cannot do because they have money to pay somebody. So we'll deal with that. And once that order comes, we are going to go into energy, as I've said. Once we have sufficient energy supply all year round, then we know that we can create jobs that are going to be made available to the young people with consistent energy coming to them. Then thirdly, it's agriculture, because food is basically everything. Food sufficiency and food security under our leadership as New Hope will be critical. And how do we do that? We'll have to ensure that we combine both the old systems that worked under our leadership in MMD. You notice that under the Levy Mwanawasa administration, we had a bumper harvest for 3 solid years, consecutive years, and had excess of maize that we were now exporting to other countries. That's who Zambia is. Zambia, in terms of agriculture, we've got so much arable land that if we can empower our people, the young people on the streets, to become useful in food production and support that sector in a manner that it will be lucrative for somebody from university or from college or who wants to get on a career. They would rather choose agriculture because there is a support system from the government. When you look at the United States of America, the reason why food is no longer an issue for them, it's a protected sector of the American society. A number of years ago when I was there, I went to school there, there were billions of dollars that were used to, I think it's almost, I don't know whether it was 600 or something billion that was put aside to support the agricultural sector and the farmers. Because the government invested that kind of money, it meant that people go into agriculture and be sure that their produce is going to be bought. And they're going to get their money immediately and their profit immediately to reinvest again in agriculture until they conquer the problem of food. That's my vision and the vision of the New Hope Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. The MMD is going to support this sector. America tells us don't subsidize anything because in a capitalist economy, don't subsidize. Because if you subsidize, then you are, distorting the shape of the economy. But they themselves subsidize agriculture. They've always subsidized it. Why? Because food production is critical. So we're going to make sure that there's enough money that is invested in that area so that farmers can be paid what is due to them and in a timely fashion, and ensure that the crops that we want produced more are going to receive the support of government so that hunger is not an issue in our country. So, order, energy, food through agriculture, and those are going to be our priorities. And then we move to other sectors of the economy and ensure that we now change the way the economy works. And this is important, if you can give me just a minute. We don't believe that the current regime of running the economy is helpful. What we want to do is that we want to take those things that have worked in the past under the MMD regime and strengthen them. And these economic experiments that have been brought in between that have only destroyed the economy, we are going to fish them out. For instance, we are very firm on the fact that our current debt levels are extremely damaging to the future of this country. And we have a solution to that, because when we were in government, we had a bill of $7.2 billion in debt, in foreign debt. We had to deal with that, and we had to look at ways in which to solve those problems. MMD came up with a solution: discipline, self-discipline, government discipline, public sector reduced spending, fiscal discipline in order to show the international community we can live within our income. We reduced the expenditure of government. Ministers stopped traveling. President Mwanawasa limited his travels. We all cut down until the international community looked at us as a serious nation that is responsible and disciplined, and they forgave us of our debt. That's point number one. We are going to pay this debt. We are not going to go around it, because if we don't pay this debt, we will never be respected internationally. So my goal will be, as president, first of all, to employ fiscal discipline on ourselves. We are going to forego the luxuries that have created this crisis until we clean out the debt. And under MMD and Levy Mwanawasa, we cleaned out that debt and became debt-free for the first time since independence under MMD. And we are going to use the same principle to do that. But beyond that, we are going to decide to live within our income. This year's budget is 119 billion kwacha, and we are only bringing about 60-something billion through our income, through ZRA and other sources as a country. The difference that is there, we depend on who we call well-wishers. You can't live like that. You can't marry a wife and then your salary is 3,000 kwacha. And then your budget of living is 10,000, and you depend on well-wishers to fill the gap for you for the rest of your life. That's not going to happen under my leadership.
So it's about also citizenry empowerment. Citizenry empowerment in terms of empowering them with the right resources at the right time, for example, so that they can also contribute to the economy. Is that what you're saying?
No, I've already said that. When I talked about the sponsoring innovation of the young people, small scale, medium scale, that's exactly what I was talking about. You're using the word empowerment. It's the same thing, that we make sure that we have resource and capital available to the young people with ideas.
So that you don't borrow.
So that we don't borrow.
Okay.
That, of course.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
The last issue now, I know there are so many issues that we would have talked about. The last issue, which is health. I think we are in the period of COVID-19.
But we haven't finished. Because listen, I know this is important. If I don't finish this thought, I'll be misunderstood.
Okay.
I'm not going to live on debt, and I'm not going to run this country on debt. I want us to come to a place where we live within our means. If we can only generate 70 billion, then we have to reduce our expenditure to 70 and throw the rest of the deficit to the private sector to deal with it, until we can grow our income as a country. Because if we don't have sufficient, and I know every country borrows, but if we're going to borrow, we have to find strategic ways in which to borrow using a certain expressway that does not make us slaves to the lenders. Because if you are slaves to your lenders, it means that you cannot have your own policy positions on anything. Your politics is all hijacked by the international community of lenders. I don't want Zambia to be a slave of any other country. I want us to make our own decisions. I want the Zambian people to determine their own future. You can only do that if you're in charge of your economy. So this is why I'm strong on this. A borrower is not a strong person.
All right. Okay. So we move on now.
Now we can move on.
All right. Wonderful. Yeah. All right. So another aspect is health. As we conclude, I think health is another key aspect which needs to be addressed. Since 1964 to date, people still complain to say that our health facilities are in shortage of drugs, for example, different drugs. And the complaint is ever increasing. What does the hope for MMD? What kind of solution do you have in regards to health?
Health has been a victim of great misunderstanding. First of all, under UNIP, President Kaunda wanted to make sure that every Zambian had access to medical care. That in itself was a great idea, but he did not consider the cost of providing medical care to all Zambians until the government went broke, that they could no longer provide medicine, that hospitals were run down, dilapidated. Instead of them being hospitals for healing, they became halls for death, because you went to just the hospital for the name of hospital. There were no medicines. Doctors were running away from Zambia, going to neighboring countries where there was more money, like Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. A lot of our doctors are out
and
there.
Just maybe let me ask you a quick one. Why do government officials, big people like yourself, for example, why do you rush to other countries to seek medical aid than your own country?
It's the expression of our failure to govern ourselves. it's in our heads of having been colonized that the best stuff is out there. It's as easy as bringing the best stuff inside your country and get treated here. That is something that I'll have to discuss another day. Healthcare will be healthcare for all. And even the ministers, including the president, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda had his own ward at UTH. That's where he went for medical checkups and for treatment. And I salute him for that. In other words, whatever medical attention was available for Zambians, Kenneth Kaunda also participated in that. You know, you never heard that Kenneth Kaunda has flown over to the UK so that he can get treated. No. Kenneth Kaunda had his medicals done in Zambia. That's what Nevers Mumba is going to do. Nevers Mumba will get his medical attention right here in Zambia. It's up to Nevers Mumba to make sure that medical care in Zambia is just as good. India cannot be beating us on medical care. We should be way ahead. So here is what we believe is necessary. In evolving the manifesto, point on health, you go down to the poorest person in Chipulukusu who has no job or lost a job 7 years ago. He is, maybe the wife sells tomato by the roadside and he's at home with no job. The income may not even be more than 1,000 kwacha or 800 kwacha per month. You go to that person and ask yourself a question. How does this person access health care in case he has a problem? As you solve that problem, you are creating a manifesto that is going to answer the questions of the larger population of our country. He has no money, so how is medicine going to be made available to him? So you have to calculate how many are in that category and how much can government move in to ensure that the medicines they need are helped or covered by government. Do we give them a special program and cards that they use in order to access medicine? We need to do that. But there is also another tier that can afford to pay for medicine. You give them insurance options so that every Zambian at every level is covered by some kind, the lower one, the middle one, and the upper one. And everybody must be covered by the health care. No Zambian should be injured in an accident. Then they take him to be worked on. They're asking for, where's your medical card? If you don't have the medical card, then, you know, doctors are dilly-dallying to deal with you until you die. So we will ensure that there is a system that protects both the poor, the medium class, and the rich, that they can all access medical care when they need it. It's a possibility, it's an easy thing to do, and we will apply ourselves to ensure that you, when you get to need hospital, you should not be scratching your head. Where do I go and what do I do?
Okay.
There will be medical care
Wonderful.
Available to you.
Now, there are some certain things that you wanted to make mention, but if you could, in your last remarks, you can actually use that opportunity to actually give your last words and what you would like to send out to the Zambian people at this particular time.
No, I think what is important is that MMD has governed this country before. There were, of course, not all successful seasons. But when you compare today and yesterday in MMD, Zambians are agreed that the movement for multi-party democracy had the concerns of the Zambian people at heart. As we go to the election that is coming next year, it is extremely important that the Zambians make a decision to vote for ideas and a political organization that has demonstrated a willingness to love and to care for the Zambian people, and MMD does. The Milimi was a necessary need for all Zambians, and we made sure that the cost for it was 35 kwacha per 25 kg bag. Why? Because we wanted to make sure every Zambian had access to Milimi. We had to make sure that Zambians had access to the essential commodities that they needed. But today we have a situation where the most violent political parties are the ones which are voted for, because they make the loudest noise, because they kill each other. So people clap for violence. They clap for people that have made a name by making us poor, that have made a name by killing our brothers and our sisters, and they go to vote because it's in their heads. I call on Zambians. The movement for multi-party democracy, the New Hope, is your party. You're not Nevers Mumba's candidate. He's been vice president before. But more importantly, Nevers has been pastor in this country for 40 years. I do understand the pain and the difficulties Zambians are going through. And your vote is not wasted, because our manifesto addresses the needs of the Zambian people from the lowest and to the highest. And as we face this election, all we can promise is that we will not only give you what we used to give you, but we are going to improve on what we used to do to ensure that the economy covers you, your children, and our future.
Dr. Nevers Mumba, thank you very much for coming through to the show.
Thank you.
It was great having you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, on behalf of my producer, Chimwanga, thank you very much for tuning in, and see you next time.